Is Reece James a right back, a right wing back, right centre back, or is he a defensive midfielder? Whichever it is, how good is Reece James? How good can he become? And more importantly, how important will he be for the club going into the season? This is the profile of Reece James. And to present Reece James's profile with me today is Kishan. Kishan, welcome to Chelsea Perspective.
Thank you for having me, bro. And doing it on Reece James, I got a little choice from you, and Reece is one of my favourite players that we have right now. Love the academy as well, so to pick Reece and do a little profile on him right now, it's a really good time to do so. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy that you're able to make it, because the truth is I like listening to people who are knowledgeable of the club, and I'm glad to hear you say you like the academy and you love Reece James himself. So that is good to know, and that makes presenting his profile, let me say, an easy peasy for you. So I'm happy, and so let's get into it. Kishan, can you take some time and give us an overview of Reece James' history?
Yeah, so in terms of Reece James' history, he's always been with us since his youth days. He's always only ever played for Chelsea. And yeah, he comes from a lovely family as well. His dad, Nigel, he's come on many channels previously, etc. And his sister actually plays and literally just got her move to Chelsea after playing for Manchester United for a bit, Lauren James. But yeah, he started out and he spent 1 year on loan at Wigan, and that was quite a year of development in him. And you actually asked what position would be best for him, and he played all over the place, including defensive mid. And that's where the question comes from, because we haven't really seen him in that position at Chelsea, because you could probably say we don't need to see him in that position at Chelsea with how stacked our midfield is. But it's only probably since Tuchel's come in that we've been able to call this midfield stacked. I remember under Lampard, even I thought maybe Reece would be a really good candidate to play central defensive midfield, and one of the main reasons is because of how physical he is. You know, when he's playing in the game, the winger is in for a tough battle, and I think Raheem Sterling found that out in the Champions League final where Reece James properly dealt with him. So in terms of his history, you know, he comes from the academy, which helps him massively, and you can just tell how much he admires this club. Especially even yesterday, he scored the winning penalty for us against Aston Villa, and that penalty was amazing. The goalkeeper was already going to that side, and he put it there, and he still couldn't stop it. As soon as he gets it, he's off with the badge, holding the badge, and you could tell all of his celebrations when he scored against Arsenal, how much it meant to him to hold that badge up as well. So he's a proper Chelsea boy, and it's easy to relate to these kind of players, and we love having them in our team.
Yeah. Thank you very much for taking some time to present an overview of his history, if you like. And it's Reece James is Chelsea through and through, and seeing him kiss the badge after he scored that winning penalty, it was amazing. It was a beautiful sight to behold. And you did talk about him playing in so many positions, like the defensive midfield role and all the positions you mentioned. So that brings us to the question, Kishan, what is Reece James' best position?
This is so hard, because when you've got such a versatile player and they get put all over the place, at the same time, he's not been put all over the place for Chelsea. He's always been along that right side, but it's just nailing down the specific position. I think when you're playing a 4 at the back system, which we don't currently, it's so easy to place him at right back, get him up and down, get him defending, and just do both sides of the job, similar to the other side with Ben Chilwell. But when we play the 3 at the back, we start getting into these complications, and I think Tuchel also thought this, whereby when he played him at right wing back, he felt that he didn't sort of attack the fullback enough, and that's not what his greatest strength is. He's really strong on the ball. And another thing is, when someone switches the ball from one side to another, his control on his chest, etc., because he's just so strong with all these muscles, etc., his control is absolutely brilliant. So he's great at controlling it, quick passes, getting it out of his feet with crosses. He doesn't need too much space to cross as well. He can put top spin on crosses, etc., but he's not this marauding fullback where he'll constantly overlap and look to beat him, and he'll overlap looking to put a ball in. We saw this last season. He put a ball in for Giroud. He overlapped with Ziyech, but even that dynamic, I thought that dynamic would grow quite a bit with him and Ziyech. But with the manager change, Ziyech hasn't really got a position as well. In terms of his best position in this current system, because we haven't seen him at DM properly, I think in the future we probably might see him in that position. It's quite similar to when we speak about Liverpool and Trent getting a little go in midfield as well. I think Reece kind of has all those qualities that Trent has, and on top of that he has the physicality to hang in there with the best of them. So that position we will see him in. But if I was choosing his best, I probably would say, given time, he could be a really, really good right centre-back where he can kind of do the role that Azpi does, because even in the position Azpi plays, Rudiger on the other side, they get to advance the ball quite high up the pitch. They get to run with the ball, and Azpi gets into really good crossing positions, as you see against Zenit. He put the ball in that Lukaku scored from, and I think Reece could be that guy. And if you could get Reece there and you can get a marauding sort of right wing back who loves to take on their man, I was actually, although I really, really love Reece, I still wanted Achraf Hakimi quite a lot in the summer, and that was one of the reasons. I think those two players would complement quite a lot, where sometimes if someone is tracking Hakimi, they have to go down the line with him. If Reece is standing inside and available in a crossing position, I thought that could have been quite a great tactic for us, and it would have really worked. But because I don't feel... because I don't necessarily feel like we have the time, and we have a lot of great right centre-backs. So like you see Azpi, Christensen, Chalobah in there now, Trevor as well. So I feel like that right wing-back position is a bit short. I don't think Tuchel's completely convinced on Callum Hudson-Odoi. And then, Azpi is aging as well. So I think he's kind of locked into that right wing-back position when he's fit for now.
Yeah, great response to that question. But I'd have to argue that versatility, while it is great for a player, it means he'd always have a place in the team. At the same time, you could argue that versatility could be detrimental to a player's development, most especially a player in the age range of Reece James. How old is he now? 22?
Reece is 21 still. He'll be 22 in December.
Exactly. So I think I'd argue that his versatility could become a problem for him in the long run, because he's not. You cannot say he's yet specialized in a particular position, and that's concerning to me, because the manager will always come to you when he doesn't have somebody to cover the right centre back position or the defensive midfielder position. So he's everywhere. He's not, that is, his development is not focused to a particular position, which you could argue if he specializes in one position, then he cannot then move on to, trying to learn how to, or, play in another position. What do you think? Don't you think his versatility will become an issue for him in the long run?
That's a great point, but I think the one part that doesn't make me think that is because so far at Chelsea, when you look at where he's played, it's always been along that right side as a defender, in either a right centre back, a right back, or a right wing back. So I always think that he's always got enough to actually be out on the pitch in those positions. And like we've been saying, can he play central defensive mid? He's not had the need to yet. So I don't think we can kind of judge him as that. And when I look at sort of other utility players, I think this is what you're alluding to. You're scared that Reece but there's a potential to become a utility player if he's moved all around the pitch. But I just think talent-wise, utility players normally are very good all round, but they don't seem to have this star quality. Whereas I think Reece, one thing is if you're playing at DM, etc., he kind of loses that crossing ability from that right hand side. So I do think he will be predominantly on that right side throughout his career. And yeah, when you look at someone like a utility man like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, great utility man, you could put him all around the pitch, but I think he lacks that star quality that someone like Reece has. And I think Tuchel knows that as well, and he will, long term, I can really see Tuchel trying to make him a right centre back.
Yeah, I mean, I am concerned, while his versatility makes him a great tool in the hands of the manager, I'm still concerned that it will affect his development as a player. But that is, by the way. So now, Kishan, going over, let's move on to his abilities. Overall, what type of a player is he overall? That is, putting aside the positions he can play in the position he currently plays for the club, positions that he's played in before. What are Reece James's abilities? What type of a player is he overall?
So first thing I like to say about Reece is in terms of technical footballer, you can tell this boy was naturally built to play football. You look at him and he looks like an athlete, he looks ready to play, and he's someone, when your team is going into battle, I remember when we're going into big games against Atletico Madrid, big games against Real Madrid, he is one of those warrior type players that you want, and he's not scared to get into the physical side of the game, which I really like. But the one thing that really surprised me, because despite the fact about knowing about Reece, etc., even before the Wigan loan, you never really know if a player is going to make it at that stage. And when he came into Chelsea, his crossing ability is something that stood out for me. And I felt with Reece, even for a few seasons now, we've never quite had the right sort of striker to convert these, or the right aerial presences in the box that could make a lot more out of Reece's crosses. When I compare him to Trent, where Trent you'd see getting quite a lot of assists a season, but they'd always seem to land at the right players in the right area. We didn't seem to have that, so I could see that his crossing ability was phenomenal, but we never quite play him enough with Giroud, say, because Giroud was our sort of aerial presence, the one only guy that could really score headers. So that was something that I feel like we missed out on a lot, and I think this season is something that we should try and exploit a lot better. And it's not just crosses that he crosses in with the head. You saw against Arsenal when he's putting the cross in along the floor for Lukaku to score a 1 or 2 yard tap in, that kind of thing. I think he can get better at that side of the game. And he came in, he saw sort of Tierney out of position, and he managed to get a goal from that as well. So a goal and assist, I think his numbers side, in terms of the player that he needs to become, and I think the player that he will become, it will be this kind of right-sided defender that actually gets quite a lot of assists. And because of his technical skill, his passing range, his shooting is actually really good. So when he, I think you must have saw the goal last year against Brighton that he scored on the first day of the season. Amazing goal. And when he was on loan at Wigan, he actually cracked a few of those from outside the area. So I would say he's this right-sided defender that you could probably, as a target, you'd probably want to put around 8 to 10 Premier League assists on him, and probably around 2 to 3 Premier League goals as well. And he could go higher, maybe around the 5 mark with his technical ability.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think we've underused him. I don't think we're making the use the most of his abilities, because like you mentioned already, he can whip in those crosses on the carpet, in the air. It's just that I don't know if some would argue it is his fault that he doesn't take players on. He's reluctant to take opposition players on. He just plays the ball backwards or sideways. And thank you very much for highlighting the fact that yes, he's been underused, or let me say we've not seen him do what we know he can do very often as he should be doing it. But that's by the way. Okay, so now we've talked about his abilities, what we think is his preferred position, or let me say his best position. The next question right now is, I know you love him so much, and I'd like you to put aside how much you love him and talk about his weaknesses. What do you think are Reece James' weaknesses?
Well, if there was a weakness of Reece James, I think you alluded to it perfectly previously, and I also do think this is the amount of times that the ball is passed backwards. I think there's a lot of instances where I think, you could have made a better decision there, and instead we could have maybe been countering, we could have been doing something else, and you've taken the safe option. I like to see him actually try something, and if you lose the ball, you lose the ball, because with Tuchel's pressing system, it's not going to be that long before we get it back. So that's something that I'd like to see. I'd like to see him try some more X factor passes, but at the same time, sometimes you got to understand why he doesn't do it, because if you remember the FA Cup final, he was actually playing right centre back, and he tried an inward pass into midfield. It got intercepted, and it lands at Yuri Tielemans' feet, and from however far he is, he wins the FA Cup. So I do understand why maybe he doesn't try these things, but I always think if he's playing at right wing back, you have a greater license to do that. Whereas he was passing inwards as a right centre back, it's a bit different. So that's one weakness, I think, where he's taking the safe option way too much, and this kind of brings us on into the attacking phase of the right wing back when a ball is switched to him and you can see him one-on-one with another defender. It's very rare that he's going to run at the defender, etc. So that's another weakness, and that's why I think Tuchel was looking for someone on that right hand side. We got linked to Hakimi, we got linked to Adama Traore, and initially when he came in, you got to remember in his first few matches he actually favoured Callum Hudson-Odoi over Reece, because I think he likes that sort of marauding fullback that can take on the other side's fullback. So I would say that, and the annoying thing for us as Chelsea fans is we've got a slight glimpse of this when we played against Man City. I think he had the instruction of really sticking it on Mendy, and when the ball was switched over, there's quite a few times where he ran at Mendy and ran past Mendy, and I just thought, you've got it in your locker to do this. I want to see a lot more of it, and I hope we do. I know he's only young, but I think with him, he's so much more mature than his age suggests. So sometimes I think with that kind of thing, I don't think he will add it to his game. I think his game is slightly different, where he will cut back and cross, etc., or he'll look at positions to cross. I always think he's going to be a crosser instead of taking on a man and going down the byline or looking for a cross from the byline after taking on someone. He'll look for inward passes and to try and pick out positions. But maybe that's just the type of player he is, and we have to look and say he's not going to be that guy to try and beat fullbacks.
I've thought about it, and I think because if you look at it, his games at Wigan, he did. That wasn't a problem. From what I've seen, I did some research. I see at Wigan, he did take on players, and it's not just that's what made them stand out. That we even thought about, bringing him back on loan, if you ask me. But I think that's something that Lampard should have looked into in his early days after his return to Chelsea. But it didn't look as if Frank looked at it. He just wanted to play him there. If he brings the ball back sideways, it's okay. But under Tuchel, still it continued. But every now and then you see you see him take on players. You go, oh wow, I think he's improved. That has changed, but it doesn't look like he's. I mean, he's not doing it as often as he should be doing it. Yeah, good highlight on his weaknesses. And if you ask me, I'd say that's the only weakness I've seen in terms of Reece James's overall game. Okay, now let's move on to his current form. How well would you say he's been doing? Although he didn't get to play that much during the Euros. During the Euros, did he play any game at all?
Yeah,
I think he played a single game, right?
Scotland, yeah, he played that one against Scotland.
Okay, then other than that, let me say overall under Tuchel, how well has he been playing? Just give us an overview of his current form.
Well, his overview of his form, I'd actually say he's done brilliantly, but the one kind of thing that gives me doubts that Tuchel still is a bit unconvinced about where to put him, etc. is firstly, I alluded to when Tuchel came in straight away, he plays Callum Hudson-Odoi at wing back. Maybe Aspi at right centre back, you can understand with him being the captain. He said he wanted the captain on the pitch. But then as the season went on and you had other important games, so I remember West Ham where we really needed to go there and win last season where Werner got the goal. It was actually Christensen playing right centre back and he put Azpilicueta right wing back, and that was the first sort of odd decision. And then he carried this on into the first leg of the Champions League game where Aspi was playing there, and I thought Aspi kind of lacked the legs needed there, whereas if we had maybe James or Hudson-Odoi, we could have maybe put Real to the sword a lot more than we did. But it was just those indications. I thought, is Reece doing something that we're not seeing behind the scenes, or not exactly behind the scenes in those terms, because I know he's a good lad, but is he seeing something in Reece that he doesn't like, etc. But I think you can't really fault him because he got back into the team in the second leg. He was playing in the final, and like we said earlier with Raheem Sterling, he didn't give Sterling a kick when Sterling has caused a lot of problems to Chelsea players before. I remember him tearing Azpilicueta apart. So Reece, I think with him, another thing is Tuchel trusted Reece with Jamie Vardy's pace. And even in the FA Cup final, he performed magnificently. But the only one thing is, sometimes without learning the position fully, he tried a ball that maybe he shouldn't tried. And then sometimes we give him stick for doing these things when we want him to do these things. He lost the ball and we lost the game. But overall assessment of him, he's been brilliant. And then the start of this season, he started really well. So I don't think he played the first game, but when he came in for the second game against Arsenal, he looked like a really refreshed player. Got the assist for Lukaku with the ball that Kovacic played with to him. He took it down really well and put that across for Lukaku on a plate. He took his chance really well to make it 2-0. We go into the next game against Liverpool. He actually puts in the cross that Kai Havertz was that amazing header from. But then on the other side, he gets on the line, handles the ball, and he's out for a few games. And since then, it's been hard to build his momentum up. We saw him at Zenit, and it was a very good defensive performance. But going forward, again, we could have the same complaints like we did with the weaknesses. And then the poor lad, he has that performance. We managed to win. And he goes home and he has his medal stolen from him, which is like it, and that all plays into him. And then you gotta understand that makes Tuchel's decision for the Spurs game. He's probably thinking Reece might not be in the right mind place, so let me leave Reece out of this game. And he goes without Reece. We still win the game. That's the main thing. But it's just him as a player. Then he probably needs to find his momentum again. Luckily, yesterday at Villa, against Villa, he was brilliant with the clearance on the line. That kind of stuff shows his footballing brain. He sees Kepa out, he thinks, this might go in, let me get on the line. Clears that, brilliant defending all day, and then the penalty to round it off.
Yeah, he was brilliant during that game against the Carabao Cup game against Aston Villa. And overall, I mean, his current form, he's been great, even though he hasn't played that as much as we would have loved to see. But I think the manager is rotating the team on papers because no player will play. We have so many games to play, and if we play one player and consecutive games without resting that player will eventually burn out because they're humans after all. They're not machine. A prime example being Mason Mount, who underperformed. What was the last game he played before that? The FA Cup, the Carabao Cup against Aston Villa. It wasn't the Mason Mount we used to see. It takes a great footballing mind to know that this guy is tired. Although his industry is great, but you can be tired that is mind-wise. Your mind, if your mind isn't ready, even your body cannot carry your mind through the game because you've been making some mistakes that are not, synonymous with him. So yeah.
Yeah, you can see the decision making, can't you?
Yeah. So the rotation, I think the manager on papers isn't playing Reece James in every game because that wouldn't help his case. Yeah, that's by the way. Now, Kishan, now you could argue that the player's form highlights how that player has improved. In the case of Reece James, how would you say has he improved? If he's improved, how has he improved?
I feel like he's improved massively, and it's just in terms of having that Premier League know-how now. I feel like initially he was always brilliant physically, technically, but it was that little bit of know-how where even last season, some of the places I saw him get caught out. I think if you look at the Arsenal game, long ball came over and Tierney ran inside of him, bit naive. He thought this guy shouldn't get past me, gives away the penalty. And those kind of instances you need to learn from. And I don't see as many of those creeping into Reece's game. Last year, I remember him in Lampard's last league game being really naive. On that right-hand side, he let Maddison ghost in behind him. The long ball came in. Maddison makes it 2-0 to Leicester and Frank's gone. So he still had that sort of naivety where physically is brilliant, technically brilliant, but to play in the Premier League, you also need to be sometimes one step ahead of everyone. And I feel like towards the end of the season, especially when Tuchel came in, this is the biggest compliment to Tuchel. It felt like every player sort of grew into it, and it wasn't just Reece, because Reece I've previously seen, like I said, some of the examples versus Tierney, etc., where I've seen him have quite a hard day, and then you see him against Raheem Sterling, who's a really, really tricky winger on his day, and he actually played quite well, but it was Reece who actually managed to pocket him. And this is the example even with players like Mason Mount. I know he was playing a lot under Lampard, but I feel like he's just gone to another level under Tuchel, and it must be training methods, etc., positioning, knowing exactly where to be and what to do, that must have helped Reece a lot more with this world-class coach. So I think he's improved massively in terms of his football know-how, and now as an established Premier League player, it feels like he is at that level, and he's established by 21, and you have to say he's probably been established for longer, but with a full year experience, nearly 2 to his name. So the improvement I'd like to see still, like we alluded to, is probably trying to express himself more on the field. So when he gets the ball, I want to see him running at fullbacks, attacking a lot more. And with his passing range and technical, how good he is technically, I want him to be playing the ball forward a lot more. I know sometimes it has to go back, but sometimes I feel like it is a bit unnecessary when it goes back.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think he needs to improve more in that area to not always opt for safer options, because we play a lot of teams that defend deep, and if he keeps playing like that, that means Tuchel might opt to always drop him to the bench and find players who are more direct, who will progress the ball no matter how deep the opponent defends. And hopefully he learns to always, try to take on players, beat them, and then whip in the crosses we know he can whip in. So that's by the way. Now, this question, it's kind of it's very important to define who Reece James really is to the team. would you say he's a system player, or do you think it doesn't matter the formation we play, that Reece will always, we'll always see the best of Reece James? If he's a system player, what formation would you say is better suited for him?
I wouldn't say someone as technically brilliant as Reece is a formation player, to be honest, because there's a whole sort of variety of formations that he can fit in. I know even we've raised question marks over him in the right wing back position and stuff, but in certain games against Liverpool, certain games against Man City, he's shown against the top level of opponent that he can come out on top. That's the improvement, like you were saying, asking me in the previous question. The improvement I've seen defensively is brilliant, and if a player shows that he can have that sort of improvement, and he's played in different formations under Frank, under Tuchel, and generally, like we've alluded to, his Chelsea career has gone very well, meaning he's played quite well in all these different formations. I know right now, just because he doesn't have a position nailed, maybe it's not right centre back, maybe it's not right wing back, doesn't mean wherever he gets put he doesn't play well, because right now he's getting put at right wing back quite a lot, but I wouldn't say he's not playing well. He is still doing really well. There are parts that we'd like to see improve, like we touched on, but all in all, he will get better, and that makes me think that he's not a system player, because we've seen how good he can be when playing with a traditional winger, overlapping, etc. And we've seen how he can pocket someone in a right wing back position and kind of hold his position. Even though a right wing back, you kind of need a lot of discipline to not get up and down. You need to be up and down but not get caught out. And I think with our criticism of Reece that he maybe doesn't attack enough or take on the fullback enough, the one good thing is at least he doesn't get exposed that much as well. So that one side of it, I think we've seen enough of him in a 4, we've seen enough of him in 2 different positions in a 3 to suggest that he is one of those talented players that it doesn't matter where you put him on the field. He's not a system player. I'm going to compare this to someone in another position. If you talk about someone like Jorginho, I feel like we've seen enough of him over his Chelsea career to know that in a 4-2-3-1, etc., I don't think it's likely to work with the way that we're playing, because I think he'd just be way too exposed. So this 3-4-3 system, 3-4-2-1, whatever it is, it masks that, and it helps him to create space. It helps him to have 3 centre backs with him if he loses the ball, etc. Reece, he's physically there, he's technically there. He's not a passenger for us at all. He can fit any formation that any manager wants to play.
Yeah, great explanation right there. I don't think, I'd have to agree with you. He's not a system player. Whatever position, whatever formation we play, 3 at the back, 4 at the back, Reece fits in well. It's just the only issue we've highlighted is his reluctance, though, to take in opposition players when they defend deep. Yeah, thank you very much again for taking some time to highlight that. I know we've talked about his abilities, his weaknesses, whether he's a system player or whether he's suitable for whatever formation we play. Now, Kishan, putting everything together, what would you say? How would you explain it to an average Chelsea fan? What Reece James, what he brings to the team that complements the attributes of every other player in the team? That's what makes us, what does he bring to the table that makes the Chelsea team a better team?
So if you look right off the bat in terms of what I've said previously, it's the physicality, it's the war mindset. So if you're in a tunnel and you're a Chelsea player, you're looking around, you're thinking we're playing we're playing Man City, we need someone who's going to come to the battle. You look around, this guy is physically ready. You look at him, you look at Rudiger, you look at Lukaku. We've got really, really physical players that are ready for battle. That's the first thing. I think he's a really intimidating kind of player, and you see he gets stuck in with his tackles, with his barging, etc. he's a quiet personality, but I feel like he has so much confidence inside him that it helps him. He knows that football is his thing. He might not speak too much, etc., but his confidence in his game is massive. And in terms of what else helps him, we play a lot of one-touch football. If you ever see us play out from the back, we pass it around, it goes to Reece, he plays it to Kante. He's got that football in mind where he knows how to do things. He doesn't take too many touches when he needs to. I know we said that sometimes he cuts back a bit too often, but in terms of when certain passes are on in a split second in one touch, I think he's really, really good with that, and that helps the team in counters to get from sort of defense to midfield. He's a brilliant player. Like, you move it onto that right side, and normally it comes back into the middle, and we get moving with someone like Kante or Cover to dribble out, maybe Jorginho to hold on and pass it around. So I think he brings that side to it. And another side is when we're playing against low block teams that are defending really deep, the crossing ability is amazing. Like, when we're struggling to break them down with intricate passing, because we don't have the most intricate passes around now. It's not the days of Cesc and Oscar. Players like Kovacic recently has been getting a lot better, but in terms of penetrating lines, etc., we don't have that kind of player. So crossing is really, really important. When I was watching the game against Aston Villa, in the first half, I thought Villa went really close, and I was wondering the second half, I was thinking, what are we going to do with the players on the pitch? Independent of bringing Lukaku on, what can we do to actually score? And there was not much. I was thinking where a goal would come from, and then Reece gets the ball and puts in a ball like that, and for Timo Werner, who's not confident, and you've seen some of the chances that he's missed, so that ball was inch perfect for him to nod in, and that's how we get our goal. So that is the main thing that I think he brings, is his crossing ability mixed with that physicality, mixed with his technical ability and presence.
Honestly, you could argue that Reece, he ticks all the boxes. He's calm on the ball, his ability on the ball is awesome, and like you've mentioned, he helps the team keep the ball. His link-up play is great. I mean, what's not to like about the guy? I mean, his ability to help the team keep the ball is great. He doesn't panic even when you're coming at him. 2 or 3 players coming at him, he stays calm, finds his way, finds his space, and then pass the ball to his teammate. Yeah. Now moving on to his importance. Kishan, how important do you think Reece will be to the team going into the current season?
So this current season, we bought this big striker, Romelu Lukaku, and we need to create chances. And when you look around the pitch at the start of the season, we've not been that brilliant at creating chances through sort of your intricate play, your forward passing, etc. We've had Lukaku score through some of that, like with Kovacic playing lovely ball, etc. But I think if you look at the other few goals that Lukaku scored, it's come from crosses from Aspi, and I feel like we've not quite had Lukaku and Reece playing enough games together yet. But as that goes on, I think Reece will get quite a lot of assists for Lukaku, because we've now got a presence in the box. And when you've got a presence in the box against low blocks, that's one of the ways that you can look to score from crosses and even set pieces. And recently, Reece has been taking our set pieces, even some of them over Mason Mount, put the ball in for Kai Havertz to get his head on. So this season, I'm not too sure how many actual Premier League appearances he's got. It's probably around 3 out of the 5, I think, or maybe 2, but he has got 2 assists and 1 goal. So I think if you're looking at his importance already in the season in terms of goal contributions, that goal contribution of the 3 might even be higher than some of our midfielders like Mason, Kai Havertz, etc. I'm not sure if it exactly is, but it's probably there or thereabouts with the best in our team. So if he can bring that, he's massively important to this team, because the 2 crosses from that side are predominantly going to be Azpilicueta, who's got brilliant crossing ability. But I think Reece on top of that is Azpilicueta. I feel like he's a good crosser when when not quite in low block. Like his crossing is really good when there's like a few meters left, and Lukaku kind of showed this against Zenit. The header wasn't from the closest range, where Reece, I feel like he really got his ball kind of penetrate the goalkeeper. It kind of gives him sometimes a decision to make. Do I come out and punch this? Do I stay in, etc. So I think with this big striker Lukaku coming in, and what I previously said about him not getting enough time with Giroud to kind of swing these balls in, this is the perfect opportunity for him to really up those numbers in terms of assists, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that if we had a striker that last season that put away all the chances we had, Reece probably would have more assists than he had.
For sure.
But that's, by the way, just to add to what you said also, I think we must, even though I argued that his versatility may be detrimental to his development in the long run, his versatility also is great for the team, because he plays in the right center, he can play in the right center back position, he can play as a right wing back, as a right back, he can also play as a defensive midfielder. Even when he's playing as a right wing back, I've seen him often drift into the midfield to support play, and that is good. So his importance for the team is there for everyone to see. Now, there's been talks, there were rumors a month ago or so that Manchester City wanted to sign him. There was also a time when I think that's, to an extent, is true. The Manchester United wanted him. That was before they signed Wan-Bissaka. Now, the question to you is this, Kishan: do you think he has a long-term future at Chelsea? Or do you think at some point he might start to, think about, continuing his career elsewhere?
See, nowadays in football, you can never be sure about these things. But with Reece, with Mason, with these kind of players, I feel like they're in it with Chelsea for the thick and thin. They're proper Chelsea lads, and I can't even see them jumping ship if things got bad. With Chelsea, things never get too bad, is what I've learned, because in the Roman Abramovich era, when you look at our trophies, we've not gone more than one season without a trophy. Yeah, so we've never gone two without a trophy under Roman. So regardless of, sometimes for the last sort of 5 years, we've not been competing for a league title realistically. But we've still had a successful period, because we've won a Champions League, we've won FA Cups, we've won, I don't know if we've got a Carabao Cup, but relatively in that 5 to 6 year period, we've still been really, really successful. Europa League. So I always think we're going to be challenging for some sort of trophies, and trophies is what players want. You see over the road Harry Kane trying to fight his way out of Tottenham to get some sort of trophy. We've won like the biggest one in Europe and in club football. For me, I think the Champions League is slightly edges the league. Kind of depends on what you haven't won in a longer time. Now for this season, I'd rather win the league. But the Champions League is absolutely huge, and it kind of builds a greater bond with players like Reece. So even with interest with Man City, that was actually credible interest, because it was coming from the Athletic and Simon Johnson. And when I read that, I just thought, good luck with it, Man City, because he is not going anywhere like that. So I don't think his head can get turned. And it depends on where you see us with Tuchel. With Tuchel, I see us, we're already competing with City, and on top of that, it's a Chelsea lad. I actually saw some, I'm not sure if you saw these, but I saw some rumours of Real Madrid getting linked with Reece James today. And similarly to the reaction that I had about Man City, it's just Reece is not, it's not gonna happen. It is too Chelsea. One thing is, if he keeps up his consistency, he can get to right at that level. And I think already when you talk about young sort of right backs, everyone speaks about Trent. I think Reece is there or thereabouts. If we had to swap them two, there is no chance I'm swapping Reece, because Reece, like I said, he has that defensive element to him where I feel like he could pocket really, really good wingers. So he's got those two sides, and as long as he keeps performing as he is, we will keep him. We'll keep him safe, and I think he'll win a lot of trophies with this team. And I think he'll go on to be a club legend, like we've had Ashley Cole on the other side. We'll have Reece James for sure.
Yeah, great response to that question. And also another side to it, just to add to what you've said already, is as long as he gets enough game time out of the club, I think he stays. And the club also, another side to it also, if I'm allowed to say that, if at the time he wants a raise, he feels like he needs to be earning more, and the club gives him what he wants, I think he stays. So like we've said, you've mentioned, as long as he keeps up the level of his displays, performs whenever he gets on the pitch for the club, or whenever he dons the blue shirt, and also if he gets enough game time, because we have players that are ambitious. He wants to be playing for England. And that will not happen if he doesn't play enough. And also, like I mentioned before, if at any time he wants more pay and the club aren't willing to give him that, I think that's when he starts looking elsewhere. So if everything fall into place, and then there's no chance him leaving, because like you mentioned, he's Chelsea through and through. So Kishan, thank you very much for taking some time to answer that question, and hopefully he stays at Chelsea as long as possible. But in football, like you said, you never know, anything can happen. So Kishan, please take some time and tell the viewers about yourself, social media platforms where you have presence, and how they can reach you if anybody wants to reach you. If you have a channel, please take some time also and tell the viewers about your channel.
Yeah, so in terms of a bit about myself, is with this whole YouTube thing, I don't even have a channel currently, but I was just on Miz's channel. I came on one day as a guest, and then from there we got speaking, and I came back a few more times, and now we have a show on Sunday with Amaya as well, who's come on this previously. I saw his episode. So we have a show together with the three of us on Sunday morning, all about Chelsea news. So we go through the news, we digest it, and then we speak about it live. So that's where you can find me most of the times. And in terms of Twitter, I have a Twitter account where people can reach me. I'm not really that active in terms of posting stuff or even posting Chelsea stuff on my Twitter, but at one Kishan Patel for my Twitter, in terms of, so like you message me through Twitter, I reply to anyone, etc. So I came on Miz's channel, I came on Ankit's channel as well. So I came on that channel about a week or two ago, where we spoke about the Aston Villa game before it happened. We gave it a good preview and the weekend's football preview. So yeah, I just enjoy speaking about football, and with this whole YouTube thing, I wasn't too sure how it would go. I did it a few times and I actually really liked it. So I've been coming back on, especially on Miz's channel, on a weekly basis. So that's been really, really good, and feels fairly natural now.
Yeah, you've heard the man. I have his Twitter handle on the screen, and I'll also make sure to provide his complete information in the description section when I upload the video. Again, Kishan, it's been an absolute pleasure discussing Reece James's profile with you, and I think you've done a great job, and I'll always look to bring you back on Chelsea Perspective to talk football, because like I mentioned when the show started, I enjoy listening to you talk football. The perspective you bring to the table is always amazing and makes one think deeper than usual. So thank you again. I appreciate you finding time to present Reece James's profile with me. Like I said, I will look to bring you back again. Thank you so much, my brother. It's been an absolute pleasure. And please don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and more importantly, click on the bell notification button so you don't miss anything. Again, it is me, Coachila, and my brother and friend Kishan. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time. Cheers.